What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Got a great show lined up for you guys today as we preview both the Arkansas-Kansas basketball exhibition game on Friday and the Arkansas-Mississippi State football game on Saturday in Starkville. We're going to be joined by Connor Goodson. We'll have him on pretty quick here to talk a little bit about the basketball game between Kansas, and we'll have Steve Robertson from Gene's page covering the Mississippi State, the publisher over there, had been at it a number of years to help us break down this matchup. All that and more on today's episode of Hawg Sports Live. Plenty of ways to watch and listen to the show. Of course, we're available on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to that channel and set it to where the notifications notify you anytime we upload new video. Throw us a like or a thumbs up or whatever it is on the various platforms. It's also on Facebook. We're streaming live there. Throw us a like, follow, whatever. We got about 90,000 Razorback fans following us on that page. So join the group and get all of our free content over there. And if you want our VIP content, then it's important to sign up for the website. Now, the website right now, people ask me all the time, like, hey, love the walk and talk, love this show, love what you do on drive time and all this stuff. And, that's all of most of our free stuff. We do other stuff that's free, like stuff that comes out of press conferences and such. But the real value is our website, HawgSports. Right now, HawgSports is $1 for your first month. So you can go try it out at HawgSports.com, get ahead of basketball season, the end of this football season, the second half, all the recruiting stuff that's coming down the pipe, and who knows what else. And it's $1. You can test it out for a month for $1, right in time to lead up into basketball season. If you like it, if you like what you see, then you continue on for the next month. It's $9.95 a month after that. But as a full paying subscriber, you can also get Paramount Plus for free. Paramount Plus is like over $100 a year. Hawg Sports is like right at $100, $117, something like that if you pay monthly. So you're getting a great deal here. You're getting Paramount Plus for free or Hawg Sports free, whatever you want to look at it. It's a great way to set that up. So go to HawgSports.com. If you're interested in supporting what we do, not only here, but on the website, that's the best thing that we offer is the website. So you get access to everything that we put out constantly. So go check it out. It's a great time to sign up, or you can sign up for 30% off for your first year. HawgSports.com. Go check us out if you haven't done so already. We're going to get to Connor here pretty quick because he's got a press conference, but Mississippi State game is 11:45 a.m. on SEC Network in Starkville. I'm going to the basketball game, so I'm not going to be there. I'm not a huge fan of the cowbells or the travel to Starkville, but the basketball game definitely tipped in the favor a little bit since it's also here. Arkansas on Bet Saracen right now is -7. I'm not even sure if that moved. I feel like it was 8. I feel like it was 8 at the beginning of the week. Maybe it was higher than that. The money line is Arkansas -240 and Mississippi State +195. There are a ton of double R prop bets. Randy Rainwater comes up with those each week, but there's, probably 24 of them on here. So a lot of interesting prop bets on here. Okay. What else do we need to talk about? Injury report real quick. Jalen Braxton is out. Kyle Ramsey is out. Cornerback Jalen Braxton, kicker Kyle Ramsey, and Jaquindon Jackson is doubtful. To me, that means probably not playing. I kind of read it as like out, you're out. Doubtful, you're out. Questionable, probably playing, and probable, almost certainly playing. That's kind of how I look at it. The injury report isn't that long. And we'll talk a little bit about some of that stuff coming up. But again, I want to get Connor on first. Mississippi State has a lot of players out. Blake Shapen, obviously, we know he's been out since Florida. Travion Wright, a cornerback. Wide receiver Creed Whitmore. Wide receiver Trent Hudson. Defensive lineman Kendrick Bingley Jones. Running back Kevion Lee. Defensive lineman Calvin Dinkles. Questionable wide receiver Mario Craver. DL DeMonte Russell. Linebacker Zachariah Tillman, defensive lineman Trevion Williams. They're like their best receivers out for this game also. Okay. Sorry, we're jumping him early because he has got a press conference with Kenny Payne coming up and in about 15 minutes, and we want to get him in, get all his insight, of course, with this matchup coming up with Kansas, which Connor broke the news yesterday that this is going to be like a full-on exhibition game. Like, it's not going to be a situational deal. Connor, how's it going?
What's up, Trey?
Well, I was just telling everybody how you put it out the news yesterday that there was some word that this was going to be like a situational scrimmage with Kansas, like hey,
Yeah.
you're up 8 with this many minutes to go and stuff like that. But you put out the news yesterday. This is going to be like basically like the Purdue game last year.
Yeah, so I talked to a couple of staff members, and that's what they were told, that this is going to be more of a real game. And then Bill Self at Media Days yesterday said that he was still anticipating it to be them to have quarters instead of halves. And then he also anticipated them to do some situational work because apparently Kansas is also going to be a little bit beat up coming into this game. And then John Calipari went on Twitter just a little bit ago and clarified. He said, just to clarify the news, this is going to be a real exhibition. But Coach Bill Self and I said that we wanted to accomplish some situational stuff, so they went with quarters in hopes of being able to accomplish those situational things. So it sounds like that it's going to be a real exhibition just with quarters to kind of manufacture some of those situations that both teams want to work on. This has been crazy because initially Calipari said that it was going to be a exhibition with situational work and stoppages with coaches on the floor and stuff. And then we got word that it was going to be just real normal stuff broadcasted on SEC Network like a real game like Purdue. And then now it's kind of gone back to this weird hybrid where they're doing quarters instead of halves. But either way, it's going to be a good test for the Razorbacks. I mean, this team, we really don't know what to expect. It's obviously their first test against the number one team in the country. Again, they're playing the number one team in a preseason matchup. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a great atmosphere. And I think we're going to come away learning a lot about the guys who do actually suit up for the Hogs.
I wouldn't be opposed, Connor, to seeing it like 4 games, 4 mini games or something like that, where like maybe you start over. That way, you don't run into a situation where maybe one team gets way behind and, it gets kind of pointless. If you did like, hey, we're going to reset the score every quarter or something like that. I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to that for mini games, but I can't remember. Did they do that against Purdue last year? Did they do it in quarters? Because I feel like there have been times in the past, maybe preseason tournaments or something. I don't know. I feel like they've done it in the past where they've done it in quarters.
I know that they've experimented with certain rules and stuff in the past, and I want to say that there was a pretty prominent exhibition game last year that was divided up into quarters instead of halves. It's kind of like a trial run type deal for maybe switching to quarters eventually at the D1 level. But no, I mean, this is the perfect kind of setting to do that. I mean, both teams are probably going to be contenders when it comes to March. They're going to be contenders in their own conferences. A lot of preseason expectations. And I think that, you use this to find out what you have with the guys who are healthy. And then you're going to obviously find out what some of these younger guys in the bench that maybe not would have gotten the majority of the rotation minutes. That you're looking at guys like Billy Richmond, Carter Knox, guys that maybe would have had less of a role if these injuries wouldn't have cropped up. And you're putting them in really good situations against really talented guys on the Kansas team. And I think that you can really learn a lot about that. If, like you said, if you break it up into 4 little games instead of like just one complete game where there's a chance that it gets out of hand, I mean, you could learn a lot about guys if it's close down, coming down to the wire, and see what guys give you in crunch time. And I think that that's super valuable and something that you kind of look for in these types of games to kind of take away and use for later in the year.
Or maybe just give you the option. Like if the score does get a little out of hand, and be like, okay, we're going to reset it at halftime, or we're going to reset it at this quarter, something like that. But it's also, I think for Arkansas, I would say it's even more beneficial for Arkansas, number one, being the home team and having a game of this magnitude at this time of the year. But for the players, there's going to be so much to me like, am I the guy in this situation? Or are you the guy in this situation? Just kind of a battle and a tug. You're going to have guys probably trying to do too much for Arkansas at times also. But just kind of, settling in, figuring out what the roles are, and getting an early opportunity to do that. What are you expecting to see out of this?
I mean, I think you said it perfectly right there. You want to see how these guys react in certain situations with certain responsibilities. Like, you've got Boogie Flan, who really stood out to me as one of the key guys during this tip-off tour, and a guy that I think that they can really rely on more than I expected them to be able to at this stage. So it's like, what is he going to give you? Is he going to be the guy that's like pressing a little too hard and doesn't know when to reel it in? Or is he going to be a guy that's, maybe looking to pass first and get other guys involved before he kind of gets his? Or is that kind of DJ Wagner's role? Where does he fit? Because I think that we're going to see a lot more this season of those two guys on the floor at the same time, rather than, earlier in the summer, I was kind of thinking that maybe we would have these guys where it was kind of DJ Wagner was 1A and Boogie Flan was 1B, where they would maybe not play at the same on the floor at the same time. But I think that going forward, it might be more beneficial to have both those guys on the court at the same time. And you're going to get a really good test with guys like Zeke Mayo and then DeJuan Harris, who is a really experienced returner for Kansas. And I think that's one of the matchups that I'm really looking at. Obviously, AJ Storr, who's a Wisconsin transfer, just leading scorer last year. I think he averaged like 16 points and a handful of rebounds and was one of Wisconsin's top players and really led that team all last season, was one of the most coveted transfer recruits. How does Billy Richmond and how do Carter Knox match up with a guy like that, a seasoned vet who is capable of getting a bucket at any time? How do they match up and how do they handle that? That's really intriguing to me. And then obviously Trevin Brazile down low with like a guy like KJ Adams. How does he respond? Because KJ Adams is a handful. He's a Mack truck, really explosive, athletic. And how does Trevin Brazile kind of handle that physicality? That's going to be one of the things that I'm looking forward to. And it's kind of a bummer that we won't get a guy like Jonas Adu versus Hunter Dickinson, who's their preseason All-American. It sounds like both of those guys are going to be held out. So that kind of sucks. But aside from that, those other matchups, I think, are going to provide enough entertainment for Razorback and Jayhawks fans.
Yeah, got to get Davis healthy, obviously. I'm anxious to see that too. Trevin Brazile, to me, caught a lot of flack from Hawg fans last year. I don't feel like he trusted the knee, and I don't think it was 100%. It obviously wasn't. He had to sit out some time. The year before, like, he's doing some of the greatest dunks in Arkansas basketball history, and last year he's like scared to get above the rim. I think it's the knee. I'm anxious to see how much he progresses after a solid bit of recovery time coming off of that. Connor Goodson joining us again. One of the most guys, like, listen here. One of the most important follows that you're going to have on Twitter this basketball season is Connor Goodson. If you're not following him, you need to. At Connor Goodson, CONNOR Goodson on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be an important follow for this basketball season, because Connor doesn't only cover what's happening on the court. He covers what's happening off the court. And you put in a really important crystal ball pick. For those of you who aren't familiar with crystal ball picks, it's us making a firm, feeling really good about a recruiting situation and saying, okay, this is where we believe this prospect is going to end up. You made an important one yesterday.
Yeah. So, I'd said when this person ended up visiting Arkansas a couple of weeks ago when he left Fayetteville, I was like, if certain things happen, I'll feel confident that, he's maybe Arkansas bound. Those certain things happened last night, and I was comfortable enough to put in a crystal ball for Arkansas to land Malik Thomas, the top shooting guard prospect in the 2025 class, bona fide 5-star, one of the most elite talents still available in the 2025 class, a great complementary piece to who they already have committed in Darius Acuff. And, I said the only hurdle remaining for Arkansas after his visit to campus was that if he canceled his Kansas State visit, I would feel comfortable doing that. If he didn't make it to Kansas State, because they were making a really hard push for him. And, when you get kids on campus and you get NIL involved and all this other stuff, it gets convoluted, and there's not really a clear signs after stuff like that. And so Arkansas, I felt their chances were really good if he doesn't go to Manhattan. He ended up canceling his visit, and I think that we could have a decision here pretty soon with Malik Thomas and really keep that momentum going in this 2025 class. Another huge get on board for Calipari. And it really, I think, like I said, it's going to complement Darius Acuff. And I think we could see some other guys in the fold after Thomas also.
Yeah,
could be a really special class.
Yeah, he's from the same place as Carter Knox, right? Overtime Elite in Atlanta, goes to that.
Yeah, so he's actually a native of Pittsburgh, where Adu Thierro kind of grew up, and Calipari has a lot of ties to that area. And then he transferred to Overtime Elite over the summer, and that's where he's playing for his final year in high school before he moves on to college. And it's kind of crazy because a couple months ago, Arkansas was kind of dead in the water with Thomas, and it looked like he was UConn bound. And then UConn's kind of interest changed, and they pivoted away from Thomas. And he was like, well, if you're not going to make me a priority, then, I mean, why would I still come to y'all? So, Calipari and Arkansas didn't really let off the gas with him and made up some really good ground these last couple of months. And now it looks like that work has paid off. And I think we could expect a decision here in the next week or so and get him on board during the early signing period.
So Malik Thomas, again, the number 1 ranked shooting guard prospect in the country, a 5-star recruit. Things look very, very good with him, according to Connor. And Arkansas already has Darius Acuff on board, the number 1 ranked point guard prospect in the country. So that could be a really, really dynamic duo. And they're obviously not done. They're going to bring in at least one more big time stud 5-star type of high school recruit. Anything else you're looking for in tomorrow night's exhibition game? And by the way, for those who don't know for sure, that is Friday, October 25th at 8 p.m. You can watch it on SEC Network. Arkansas versus Kansas charity exhibition sponsored by CareSource. Anything else you're looking for in this game real quick before you hop on this press conference?
Well, I think I'll kind of dive into this a little later today. I'll have a piece out kind of what to expect and stuff. But I think just generally, you're looking for this team to be put in situations where they're uncomfortable and where they're kind of facing some adversity, and see how these young guys respond to that. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, and I don't want to rehash everything that we said, but I mean, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily important if, you go out there and you score a bunch of points, or the final score doesn't really matter in this situation because the game doesn't count. It's kind of how do you grow from this, and kind of how do guys figure out their roles and figure out where they're needed most going forward into the season when these games do start to count. And that's kind of what I'm most interested in seeing, and kind of especially these young guys, especially a guy like Big Z, who didn't really have that much opportunity last year. He should get some significant run tomorrow night, and I think that we'll find out a lot about this team going forward.
All right, Connor. Appreciate you, man. Looking forward to the coverage after this press conference. All right, everybody.
All right, thanks, Trey.
All right, that's Connor Goodson. Again, follow him. An important follow at Connor Goodson. On X. And most of his basketball in-depth stuff and recruiting information is VIP, so you do need that subscription at HawgSports. Again, just $1 right now for your first month. I'll tell you what else is not even $1 is Ozarks Go. If you use the promo code BIDDY1 and you're a first-time user at Ozarks Go, you can get a free month. Ozarks Go, fantastic internet speeds, consistent, reliable. Northwest Arkansas, parts of Oklahoma. I hear they're getting into Texas, and kind of think, north of the tunnel in Northwest Arkansas. But fantastic organization, fantastic company. I've been with them over 3 years. I have had 100% uptime, except for like one time when they said, hey, we're going to have an outage at like midnight to work on some stuff. Like, I've never had an unexpected outage with them. I've never unplugged or replugged my router. It just works. It's consistent. They offer multi-gig, which is what I use, which I have a ton of stuff going on, obviously, in this office and studio. But I have used gigabit in the past, and that has been fine too. I haven't even noticed. So gigabit's probably really great for most people who are very active on the internet. They offer several different tiers. They're not going to jack up your rate one year to the next. When you call them at 479-684-4900, you're going to talk to a local person, or you can reach out to them at ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG. Important to use that tag, and you can find out if they're available in your area. ozarksgo.net/hawg. Fantastic internet service that I'm proud to have as a sponsor on this show. Okay, we're going to go to Steve Robertson. Steve Robertson, you can reach him at Scout Steve R. He is the owner-publisher of Gene's Page, which is in the 24/7 Sports Network. I've known Steve for a long time. He's come up here for Razorback games. He's been in the industry for a number of years. I mean, as long as I can remember. He was at the Scout Network, which I wasn't a part of, but we're both now at 24/7 Sports.
Hello.
Steve, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you?
It's good to have you on the show. I'm doing good. Looking forward to this weekend's matchup in Starkville, and just kind of wanted to get let's just jump into it, Steve. For those of you who don't know Steve, by the way, published author. How long have you been in this business, Steve? How long have you been covering state?
Since 1997.
1997. So he's one of the few guys in this business who's been doing it longer than I have. Writes a lot. You've got a lot of books out. I saw something. You got maybe something on bourbon. You've got. Is that right? I just saw the bourbon glass. I know you kind of a jack of all trades, right?
Well, I'm in recovery. I've been cleaning. If I make it to December 10th, I'll be cleaning sober 33 years.
Okay, so it was about not drinking then. Is
yeah,
that right?
exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Not that I'm opposed to anybody else drinking.
Sure.
That's your business. But when I drink, I break out in spots, like Dallas and Houston, and so.
Well, I'll say this: out of everything that you've written, I thought the one that really brought a tear to my eye was your message board post on My Friend the Pirate, talking about Mike Leach and the impact that he's had on your life and on others and stuff like that. I just thought that was really well done and a great tribute to him.
Well, thanks for that. And I'll tell you what's interesting about that. My wife and I were in San Diego, and this guy walks up to her and says, "Hey, what band is he in?" I get that a lot. I'm retired from all that, but anyway, so she goes, "Oh no, he's a sports writer." And he looked at me and he goes, "Wait a minute, you're the guy that wrote that story about Mike Leach, about My Friend the Pirate." And next thing I know, he's got like tears in his eyes. And so I tell him a couple stories about Mike, and he looked at me and he goes, "Steve," he said, "Coach Leach was everybody's coach." And I think that's probably the greatest compliment that you can give a guy, that everybody in some respect felt some kinship to him.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll watch that speech from when he was at Washington State. And, that was last effing week. That is one of my favorite speeches. You didn't make that catch. Michael Crabtree made that catch. Or was that at Texas Tech? I guess that was at Texas Tech.
That was at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And he and I have talked about that a few times, and he goes, that was one of the things that he constantly got on teams no matter where he was, is you're never too good to play your opponent. It's like, you think you can just show up and go through the motions and win a ball game. That's just not how life works in Power 5 football.
Yeah, well, obviously a lot of change over at Mississippi State. Now Jeff Lebby is the head coach, 2 coaches removed from Leach now. So things are moving fast there. Let's just jump in a little bit on the injury report. I've read off some names and stuff, but it doesn't mean it's a little hollow because I don't know just about every guy and the impact of that injury report. What is the latest right now, and in terms of impactful players that are missing or might return?
Well, it's interesting. Some of those guys, you never know what they're out for. You know what I mean? It's like, I love that we're doing this now. I don't know that Jeff Lebby loves doing it. Like, he's not going to talk about injuries on Monday. Like, he's just going to wait for the report to come out on Wednesday. But, of course, Blake Shapen got injured against Florida. He's been out. Trey Wright hadn't played much at all this year. And Creed Whittemore and Trent Hudson, wide receivers, both opted out back after the Florida game. Kedrick Bingley-Jones has been out the last couple of weeks. Kevon Lee has been out a month. Calvin Dinkins has been out since the season opener. So the only fresh injuries that we have are Mario Craver, and I'm told he could be a game-time decision. They're not giving up on him just yet. DeMonte Russell is a guy that, he's been here 6 years, man. Most guys have been in school at Law Doctors, but he's been here a long time, and he is a starter, so that's a concern. Zachary Tillman is a guy that's a redshirt freshman that he made a big pick last week against A&M, and he blocked a punt against Texas. So he's been a second-team guy, but he's a guy they're really high on. And then Trevion Williams, a guy that's highly recruited guy that's kind of finally gotten healthy and coming in his own a little bit. So, that's the thing, too, within this Arkansas offensive line, this running game. State's got a couple of guys up front that may not be quite 100%. But by and large, most everybody that's listed as out has been out for some time.
What can you tell us about Michael Van Buren, the freshman quarterback? What have you seen from him in terms of his growth, development, and how he's filled in for Shapen?
Well, he's not the typical freshman. He's a little bit older, but also too, he's a guy that he played at St. Francis Academy, in Baltimore. So they played a national schedule. It's not like they had, week to week playing, the Mississippi School of Math and Science or anything, And so they went out and played De La Salle. They played, some of the better teams in the country. So I think he's a little more college ready than most high school quarterbacks because of the level of competition that he played. And of course, they traveled and things like that all over the country. And so a lot of that stuff is not new to him. I mean, of course, it's new to go into some of these big SEC venues. But I thought Kirby Smart said it best a couple of weeks ago. Man, you talk about a kid that's been thrown to the fire. His very first substantial action comes against Florida in a game he wasn't expected to play. And he goes down, gets a touchdown drive, would have had a second one, but time expired. So it felt like he was the guy. And then you go to Texas, and it took a little while to kind of get going, but he hit some big shots against Texas. Defenses was the issue there, and kind of the same thing at Georgia. So I think they feel like, hey, maybe we're starting to make some progress on offense around Van Buren. But when you have to recalibrate the offense a month into the season and insert a new quarterback, there's going to be some growing pains, and there have been. But by and large, I think, really the issue that State's faced is one of the things that we knew back in the preseason is they were going to go as far as this defense could carry them. And so far, that hadn't been very far, but had their best Saturday, I think, of the year this past weekend against A&M.
Up front on the offensive line, there's a lot of similarities. It seems like there's, at least looking on the outside, it looks like 4 transfers from the last couple of years, the last couple of classes, and one guy that was recruited out of high school. But Cody Kennedy is over there now, and I always liked Cody a lot. He caught a lot of flack last year for the struggles on the offensive line. I actually think it was I think it was Dan Enos was the bigger problem, the offensive coordinator. But, things happen, and he's off to Mississippi State. What do you think about the job that he's done? And let us know a little bit about that offensive line.
It's so interesting. And when he was hired, it's like, there are a lot of people that are glass half full people and those that are glass half empty. I'm just happy to have a glass. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just grateful for whatever God gives me. But, Cody was a guy I think had a really good portal class. And I think that erased a lot of concerns with him. Then, of course, you got to hammer that group into a cohesive unit. And it's taken a little bit of time, to do that. I think they have been better as of late. And, of course, they played some of the best fronts in college football, and I thought A&M was probably the best front that we faced all year. And there was one big possession where they got back-to-back sacks. And, I think this group has developed some cohesion. They're a really tight group. But, you got a guy from North Texas at center. You're not the biggest guy, Ethan Miner. And you go out and you get Jacoby Jackson from Texas Tech. And, you add Marlon Martinez from LSU, and these are guys that have played some, but they haven't necessarily been guys that have been, stalwarts, at their previous schools. And then Albert Reese, a guy that I think he's an NFL guy. He's a guy that was recruited out of high school. He's originally a Canadian, so it probably took him a year or two to kind of get up to speed. But the pieces are there with this group. But it's just a matter of just kind of finding some cohesion. And you go to Georgia and you don't give up a sack. And then, last week you kind of got knocked around a little bit. But I think that A&M front is about as good as we're going to see all year.
What about the guys running behind them? It's Johnny Daniels, Davin Booth. Looks like the guys that have kind of, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a two-headed deal with those guys.
Well, it's interesting. Jeffrey Pittman was the leading returning rusher on this team, and he was dismissed from the program before the season began. And so right out of the gate, you're having to test your depth. Kevon Lee emerged after fall camp is RB1, and now he's been out a couple of weeks. And, he's a guy that, that runs really hard. He's maybe not as dynamic as the other guys, but I think he's a veteran guy. He wasn't a guy that really struggled with fumbles and things like that. But, now he's not available. And so you're basically playing with your number 3 and number 4 guys. And when it's all said and done, Johnny Daniels is a guy that was kind of under-recruited, but I've known his JUCO coach for as long as I've been in this industry. And he told me last year, he goes, I don't know if I've ever had anybody run harder than Johnny Daniels. And I think you've seen that on tape. He is a guy that's not going to run away from a lot of people, but he is a guy like he can absorb first contact and fall forward, even though he's not the biggest guy. And if he does break a tackle, he is a guy that's going to kind of bang around like a pinball out there in secondary and get some more yards. Davin Booth is a guy that has a little bit of explosiveness about him. I don't know that he has the best vision. There are some times when the play is there to be made. It's like he kind of runs up the backside of a lineman. But when he does follow his steps correctly and reads the block well, he can be very good. But they've been good at times. But, again, just trying to find some consistency. And, they ran the ball extremely well against Texas, and maybe not so well last week. But again, I think it's more to do with A&M's front being a elite group.
What can you tell us about this defense overall, Coleman Hutzler's? Is it attacking style? Is he an odd front? What does he like to do? And maybe some of the guys to really keep an eye on.
Well, they're pretty multiple in that respect, and like even last week, I mean they changed some things up. I think early on they were trying to chase the quarterback a lot, and I think now it's like they want to influence the quarterback and. It's not like Zach Arnett where you start blitzing as soon as you get off the bus, and so that can be high risk reward, right? Because if you don't get home, you leave 10 defending 11. But the reality of it is this is a group that we knew from the beginning was pretty thin up front, and then you had to rebuild the linebacker room. You bring in Stone Blanton, of course, from South Carolina. He's played much better the last 3 weeks. Nick Mitchell's a guy that's kind of been a career special teams guy, and he's begun to kind of play well and kind of take part of the leadership role there at linebacker. The secondary has actually been a bit of maybe a surprise in the respect that they're playing a little bit better than people anticipate. But the quarterback percentage against them is not great. But as you get inside the numbers, nobody's really attacking State down the field. Mm-hmm. Occasionally they'll hit a big shot, but more times than not they're playing underneath. Coleman likes to play a lot of zone. And so as a result, people are kind of throwing it underneath, and then they have to go make a tackle. But it's not really an attacking style defense, but they will dial it up in spots. But it's really more of a bend but don't break defense, and they're going to make you drive the field. And they're not a team that's going to go out and maybe make the big play, and they hadn't made many plays. But also too, they're not going to give up a lot of big plays.
Steve, I want to get you out of here with this. If you've got a prediction, if you're ready to give it, we'd love to hear it. And just how do you see this one playing out? I've got to imagine that after the gauntlet that Mississippi State has played, they've got to be looking at this one. They're at home. Arkansas is a team that's very up and down. They got to be looking at this as a big opportunity.
Well, and I got to be careful, because my oldest son and daughter-in-law live there in Rogers. So I don't want anybody to go egg their house or anything, but. I got a lot of respect for the Razorbacks. I love Sam Pittman. I really do. I tell people all the time, like when I get a chance to transcribe his press conferences, I think, he reminds me of my favorite uncle. You know what I mean? It's just, and you can see why he would do so well on the recruiting trail. And I think the early start's been really good for them. But, I don't know if you've run the numbers on this, but Arkansas is 2-6 in road games that kick off before noon. Mm-hmm. And I think State is kind of ascending at this point. I do think State wins a close ball game. I know that's not maybe what your listeners want to hear, but I've picked against State now, I guess, I've picked them to cover, but I hadn't picked them to win since Toledo. But I do think because with Jaquindon Jackson being out, I mean, I know he was kind of banged up last week anyway against LSU, but you saw what that Razorback offense was unable to do. Or they have 38 yards on 19 carries, something like that. Mm-hmm. I think State's got to try to find a way to neutralize that running game and 17.5 points a game for Arkansas. I think State will probably get in the 20s, and probably the first team to 20 is going to win this game. And I do think it's going to be Mississippi State, but I won't be surprised either way. That's what college football's about.
Yeah. What kind of music did you play, Steve?
Well, it depends on what phase of my life you're talking about. I was with a band that cut an album with RCA back in '91, and we were a dance outfit. The girls, I was a rock guy, and the girls I wanted to date were listening to Depeche Mode and Duran Duran and all that. So I adapted, 9 Inch Nails. Yeah. And then I got back into rock music, and now I just look like a rock star. I'm just a poser these days. But I live my life on my own life terms, and I'm happy to be alive and happy to be clean and sober. And I'm married to the prettiest girl I ever dated. I got 4 amazing kids. I get to cover my favorite team for a living. I got nothing in the world to ever complain about. Yeah.
Well, playing all that music and listening to all those cowboy bells 7-8 times a year, you still got your hearing?
I do, but I can tell you, I expect to lose it at some point. When I'm in my car, like when I'm traveling the SEC road, I mean, it's like Headbangers Ball all over again, and I still crank it up. So
yeah, I hear you, brother. All right. Appreciate you, Steve. Thanks for hopping on. We really appreciate you, man.
Take care, Trey. We'll see you, buddy.
All right, later, buddy. Steve Robertson joining us. I got to be careful because my father-in-law has a similar name without a T in there. I want to say Robertson. But, guys, I think as like a network, you love to kind of dislike certain guys that are on other team sites and stuff. And I see, Steve catching some flack when Arkansas playing, and I catch certainly flack on other team sites, but really good guy right there. Salt of the earth, a guy that, you heard his story. I mean, great rider, important figure for Mississippi State athletics. So we're happy to have Steve on, and definitely a unique character in our network. All right, where do we want to go? So the latest news from Sam Pittman. So his last press conference with the media is always at 10:40 during the SEC teleconference on Wednesday. So this news is out of that. Obviously, we know there's a position battle going on at left guard. My particular opinion, I think they're paving the way for Kudus to come back and start at left guard by moving Marion Harris like they did last week and moving Blackstock over to left guard, because Sam Pittman told me, I asked him the question, he said, Marion Harris is not fifth. He's not our fifth best offensive lineman. This was after maybe a couple of weeks of fall camp after he had moved in that spot. He's not fifth. I don't know if he's third. I don't know if he's fourth, but he's not fifth. So to me, is Blackstock fifth? And if he's fifth when they're healthy, is he sixth when Kudus is back? That would be my question. So are they paving the way kind of for Kudus to come back and slide into that spot? At the same time, there's 5 regular season games left, and I know that they want to redshirt Patrick Kudus. So that means he can't play in one of these regular season games if he wants to redshirt. So that's an interesting competition to watch. They've basically been moving him in and out at left guard there. But I fully feel like this was a move to pave the way, because you can't just bring Kudus back and say, okay, you're going to play tackle now, because we know that's not his best position. We know he needs to be inside with somebody on both sides of him. The Cody Kennedy reunion, we talked about that a little bit. I always liked Cody Kennedy. I thought he caught a lot of extra hell last year for the problems that mainly stem from some youth on the offensive line, and I thought poor communication overall from offensive coordinator Dan Enos. I just felt like they just butted heads, didn't mesh, and long story short, they're both out of the equation. But 2021, Arkansas led Power 5 in rushing, and 2022, they were second in the SEC in rushing, actually had more yards per game, and then suddenly he just completely sucks as an offensive line coach. I'm not totally buying that, but you can't have a season like they had last year and not expect change to happen. And he landed at a good spot in the SEC at Mississippi State. So that'll be an interesting reunion there. How much does he know in terms of intel about Arkansas? And the last thing we talked to Steve about a little bit, but cowbell hell, man. Pittman talked about this a little bit. So these guys are listening to those cowbells every day. And that's one of my – I think they've done a great job with Davis Wade Stadium, when they renovated it several years ago now. It used to not be that great of a stadium, but, it's the horseshoe style. It's a nice venue. I think Starkville overall catches a lot of flack when it's not that bad a town. I mean, it's not Athens, it's not Fayetteville, but it's not a bad place to be. But it catches a lot of hell. That stadium is always, people kind of have things about the stadium. The worst thing about Starkville is these damn cowbells. And one reason I don't like going there, I have to wear earplugs. I don't like doing that. And I can't hear the person next to me. It's just loud, clanging noise. And these guys are listening to it throughout practice just to prepare for them. And Pittman made note of this. The first year that they played at Starkville, they had the sound coming from the wrong directions, and it kind of comes down from a 45-degree angle. So they've changed like the orientation of the speakers and all that stuff, so it kind of rains down a little bit differently. They also ring those cowbells in key moments in the game. You cannot tell me they're not ringing those cowbells. It's the fourth quarter, and Ole Miss is 4th and 5, and they got to have it. You can't tell me that they're not ringing the cowbells. I know, because I can hear it. I can hear it on TV. So that's just my thoughts on it. Okay. What's next? Keys to victory. I'm going to repeat myself. Guys, like, if it's ever played true, turnovers, penalties, special teams, injuries. I mean, like, if you win those categories, you're going to win the game in the SEC generally. Arkansas lost the turnover battle 3-0 against LSU. They won the penalty battle, actually. LSU had a bunch of false starts. They didn't have – but the penalty yardage total, I think, was actually pretty equal, and it was like 10-7 on penalties. So both teams didn't do a very good job in the penalty aspects. Special teams, Arkansas missed a 42-yard field goal. LSU didn't miss. Arkansas punted well. It was close, but the edge does go to LSU in that one. Injuries, Jaquindon Jackson, Taylon Green not being 100% or protecting himself a little bit. That's going to be a big aspect in this one. I think that Taylon Green, while he could get up to close to full speed, I think, he's also protecting himself and not putting himself in unnecessary situations because, you may be able to run fine, but you get hit and you land awkwardly or somebody hits that knee, I guarantee it's going to hurt. And I think he's probably protected himself a little bit against LSU, and it affected the outcome, especially with Jaquindon Jackson not being 100%. So those are always are 4 keys to victory. And Connor always adds a 5th one, and it's no more cowbell. No more cowbell? One of the great all-time SEC skits. So don't let the cowbells affect you, basically, and silence them. Strike early, strike often. It's kind of like, what is the quote? Strike first, strike hard, strike fast, strike hard, no mercy, sir. I can't remember what it is. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir, something like that. Anyway, but LSU did a good job, as perfect as they could do in terms of taking Arkansas's fans out of the game as much as possible. It was still pretty rowdy, but you have a long opening drive that ends in a touchdown. And then Arkansas goes down and misses a field goal from 42 yards, which you can't miss 42-yard field goals. And then LSU goes back down and scores. They get a field goal. They go back down with a long drive. And next thing you know, Arkansas has had 4 minutes of possession time in the first quarter. So out of 15 minutes. And then the very first play on the next drive, you get a 12-yard run that ends in a fumble and lose the ball, turn the ball back over, and they get another field goal. Suddenly they're up 13-0. That's the recipe to shut down a crowd on the road. As Steve mentioned, Arkansas was 2-6 in road games played before 11 or played before noon. I think that's significant. Why is that the number? Arkansas seems like they've been generally a good road team, but maybe just at night. They're a good road team. And they've played some close games that they've lost. Obviously, last year they lost a lot of close road games. He also asked the burning questions. What are the burning questions in this game? Number 1, bounce back day for Hogs rushing attack. As we've said, let Braylon Russell eat, as Sam Pittman has said, but he's absolutely right there. Braylon Russell, to me, has the highest ceiling out of any of the backs that are going to be available. I don't view Rodney Hill as more than a specialty back. He's just, 5'10", 186, I think is probably generous for him. But he can help. He can help them. Rashad DeBinion, I think, is a 10-carry kind of back. I don't think that he's a guy that you want to give 20-something carries. Braylon, I think the low number for him is going to be 18 carries in this game. I think he'll have at least 18 carries, and depending on how it goes. But 6'1", 253, surprisingly quick. Can Hogs defense slow improved Bulldogs offense? That's also going to be key. Michael Van Buren, the more starts he gets, the better he becomes. But Arkansas's defense is playing well. You look at the games against Power 4 competition, Oklahoma State defense is responsible for 14 points, in regulation. All the other points come from, a fumble, a muffed punt, a pick six. All the other points that they scored in regulation are coming off of mistakes from offense and special teams. Against Texas A&M, 14 points. Against Auburn, 14 points. And I know that the Texas A&M scored 21, but Arkansas also fumbled at their own 10-yard line in that game. Auburn only scored 14 points total. Tennessee only scored 14 points total. LSU, I would say 23 of those points 24 points, something like that, were on the Arkansas defense in that one. But they also kept getting put out over and over again. Will Arkansas offensive line shuffle? We talked about that a little bit. Does Arkansas overlook Mississippi State? Lord, I hope not. If you're overlooking Mississippi State, if you think that Mississippi State owes you something because they're 1-6, then you got another thing coming. This is an SEC team. They've got their problems. They're starting over, but this is an SEC program, and you cannot take anybody lightly in this conference. If you do, you're going to get your ass kicked. I don't care who it is. If you go in thinking somebody owes you something or you're that much better than them that you don't have to bring your A game, you will lose. I don't care who you are. That's across this league. And it includes Vanderbilt this year, by the way. This would be a disaster if Arkansas lost. And can Arkansas avoid disaster? This would be a disaster for Sam Pittman as the head coach at Arkansas, and a disaster for everything going on around him. I mean, like, yes, there's still an avenue to get to bowl eligibility because you're the home team. You can beat Ole Miss at home. You can go to Columbia and win. Texas at home is going to be very difficult, but crazier things have happened. But just the idea that you're capable of beating Tennessee, of probably should have beat Texas A&M, could have beaten Texas A&M. We got to be careful, Josh Pate. Could have, not should have, but could have beaten Texas A&M. I dare say that they should have beaten Oklahoma State, but they didn't. They made too many mistakes. But the idea that, you know, you can beat a team like Tennessee and then lose to a team like Mississippi State is just the continuation of a narrative that Arkansas, you never know what you're going to get out of these guys week to week. I think it would be detrimental to Sam Pittman and his future at Arkansas to go on the road and lose this game to a 1-6 team in Mississippi State after we know what they're capable of, even though they're dealing with some injury issues. That would be really tough on him. And I know that, like, how fans look at something and you say, you know, 7 wins this season, they do that, they'll be good. And you look at it and you say it like that, you know, oh, yeah, they'll be fine. I mean, like, and then maybe build to next year. But when you're living it, I say this all the time, when you're in it, you go social media, fire Sam Pittman, fire the whole staff, fire the state. I'm done with this team, you know. That's the roller coaster of emotion you're dealing with in game and in season too. When it's happening and you're living it versus when you're projecting it is a totally different emotion. This is as must win, I think, as any game. And people can say what they want right now, but I promise you when you're in it and things aren't going well, it's a different story. I do think Arkansas is going to win the game. Okay? I just don't – I'm not sold that they're going to win the game. Like, I'm not sold that they're going to win the game. I think they're going to win the game. I think they've got a better team, and, you know, when you look at the quarterback matchup, you know, not that Van Buren's not a mature guy for a freshman, but he's still a freshman. I think the Arkansas defense overall is playing well enough to hold them, and Mississippi State ranks dead last in the SEC in scoring defense, total defense, rushing defense, and passing defense. All 4 of those major categories, they are dead last. You can talk about, you know, third down percentage, sacks, all that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, total defense, scoring defense, passing defense, rushing defense, they are 16th out of 16 in all of those categories. First in reliability would be Ozarks Go. Ozarks Go, you can reach out to them at 479-684-4900 or go on the interweb at ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG. You can enter the promo code BIDDY1, BIDDY1, and you can get a free month of service at Ozarks Go. The best thing about Ozarks Go is you don't get in fights with your family because the internet's not working. Everybody gets frustrated. My show's not working. My phone's not working. What happened to the internet? I don't know. Let me go plug it in and plug it out. I don't know. It's not working. Let me call them. I've never had that experience. We live in harmony at the Biddy house because we have good internet service. And if you want good internet service and harmony in your house, then go to ozarksgo.net/hawg or 479-684-4900. When you call that number, you're going to talk to somebody from around here. When you say, yeah, I live north of the tunnel, they're going to know what tunnel you're talking about. You say, yeah, you know, I live over by Gully Park. They're going to know what Gully Park is because they're from this area. They're not going to ship you off to some call center. Go check them out, ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG. Great internet service for you and your family. No more fighting. Imagine. No more in-house arguments over the internet not working. Harmony. All right, everybody. I think we've covered it. We had Connor Goodson on, talking a little bit about the Kansas matchup. We had Steve Robertson from Gene's Page covering Mississippi State Bulldogs, give us a lot of good insight on the matchup coming up on Saturday. We had Danny West for an extended period on Monday. We'll probably flip it back to having him on Thursday and Connor on Monday next week when we preview Ole Miss and Fayetteville. Ole Miss and Fayetteville, that is an early game also. The rest of the Fayetteville games are early, I believe. I think that's right. So anyway, let's look at that real quick. I don't want to be wrong on that. Arkansas football schedule. So, okay, obviously Mississippi State's 11:45. Ole Miss, I don't even know why they did this, but they announced what we already knew, that it was going to be an early game, and it's going to be on ABC, ESPN, or SEC Network. Like, duh. 11 or 11:45 on November 2nd for Ole Miss. Texas is at 11 a.m. and it'll be on ABC or ESPN. Louisiana Tech is to be determined, so there's a possibility that could be a night game. And then the last game of the season at Missouri on a Saturday, not a Friday, on a Saturday at 2:30 or 3:30 p.m. in Columbia. Arkansas 4-3, 2-2 SEC. All right, everybody. Thanks to all you for hopping on and supporting the show. Go sign up at HawgSports.com right now for 30% off for your first year or just $1 for your first month. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you like the show and you haven't done that already, you can just give us 5 stars, or you can take a moment and write something out, let others know what to expect. We certainly appreciate that. We are currently the #1 rated and reviewed show focused on anything Arkansas out of the state of Arkansas. All right, everybody. That's the show today. Appreciate you joining me. I'll obviously I'm going to the Kansas basketball game on Friday. I'm not going to be in Starkville, but we will do a walk and talk afterwards from Parts Unknown in Fayetteville. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.